Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Room Temperature IQ podcast. Here with me today are my co-hosts Rahul
Hello.
and Pedro,
Hello.
and of course myself, Noah. And today we have a special guest, Lope. Welcome.
What is up?
Not much, to be honest. Only this podcast. Well, okay, to start off, I'm going to say a quick disclaimer. This is called the Room Temperature IQ podcast for a reason. We are 17-year-olds, and so everything we say on this podcast should be taken with a grain of salt. We are not professionals at anything, as we are only students, and this is mostly for the purpose of entertainment. Now that that's out of the way, we shall start by discussing the current events, as we are all stuck in quarantine. And I shall redirect this question to you, Lope. How are you currently feeling because of this current situation?
Well, honestly, I'd say my opinion is pretty controversial.
Well, let's hear it.
Okay, so essentially, I would rather we're all just out and about at this point. Like realistically, it's been how many months? Like two and a bit.
Yeah, I think so.
Like we've been inside for a while, and it's time, bro. It's time. Like I can't stay locked up any longer. Like it's already like wearing down my sanity.
Yes, I do agree with you. I do find myself sometimes wondering why I even am stuck indoors at this point. It's getting a bit out of hand, to be honest. What do you think, Rahul, about this situation?
I'm liking it. I think it's fine. I mean, of course, there's not that social interaction, which is a bit unfortunate. But then again, I'm doing everything that I used to do when I was not in quarantine now. So the only big difference is that I don't get to see people, but I do still talk to my friends like I am right now. I'm not really fazed by it. I think that we're doing a good job at keeping contained, and that we should just wait and let time run its course.
Well, I'm not a scientist or anything, but isn't there like some like definite like physical or like chemical reactions that happen when you meet people face to face? Like, aren't we missing something important?
You mean like that? Yeah, I mean, I have heard as well that, yeah, usually humans do feel happier when they are in contact with other humans, as you can start share emotions with each other. So yeah, we are currently missing that physical connection.
Like, yeah, I just feel like realistically, this is having like worse effects than we think.
That's true. Yeah. Well, and you, Pedro, what do you think? What do you make of the current situation?
Well, I have to be inclined to agree with Lope on the facts that we should have already been let out long ago. This is not doing anything, and what everybody should have done was the only obvious choice would have been to lock everybody's borders down the moment they heard of a disease, instead of keeping them open for like 3 weeks and letting the disease spread worldwide. I think that one decision says a lot about today's society and what's wrong with it. But hey, that's just me.
All right, that's a fair point.
No, like realistically, if you think about it, the world actually had like a really, really slow response to this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like aren't there like 10,000 different like preparations for pandemics and stuff? Like, aren't we learning from the past? Like, why did it take so long to get like a handle on this?
That is true, but it's also due to the fact that China they were first affected, and they, as we recently found out, they lied about how many infected people they actually had. So I think they had like way more. I think like okay, don't quote me, but I've heard somewhere around like the 30 million amount of people like in total. And they said only a few thousand had been infected, which is obviously, that makes a big issue, especially that I can't remember how many people, but that left the country during that the 2-week period where they were still where Wuhan was still open, and obviously that made a very large escape, or like it was pretty much like the coronavirus took the plane and was like, all right, I'm just going to go to this country, to this country, to this country, and slowly it just started spreading, and obviously people underestimated it, so it just spread like so much faster than people thought.
There's only two ways of screwing up in a situation like this, right? And it's simple, right? It's either overconfidence, which is like 50% of Western countries, which is totally understandable, and the other one is just believing the Chinese, taking them at face value.
Yeah.
Come on, like if
It's
you
the bloody
just had an
Chinese. Why would you
outbreak-
believe them?
No,
if you have an outbreak, it doesn't matter if the country says it's fine or it's not. You still take precautionary measures. You don't
it's
go
most-
like, oh, it's fine. I
Bro,
think
since-
50% of
crazy,
people
bro.
are still gonna go, it's fine.
Since when have people started trusting each other, bro? This is such a new development, bro. What happened to like the America that was like, bro, anything the Chinese do is suspicious, bro? Like all of
Yeah,
a sudden
that's true.
they're like, oh no, we'll completely trust this
Well, no, to be
dictatorship
honest,
to be completely honest with us.
I don't think they fully trusted it, but like they didn't really have a choice. They kind of had to, because especially with how fast it spread and how densely populated China is, they had to be like, all right, even though we don't trust them, maybe we kind of have to take the word into consideration at this time. But I mean, if we're talking about America here, they completely underestimated it. They just slacked off. They didn't even care. And now America is the most infected country.
I don't
in the
want to
world.
point any
8 million.
fingers, bro, but
Man.
Trump.
Yeah, no, he apparently might even lose the election because of it. But
No, like allegedly, like I think the last 3 presidents had like created a bunch of new like disease prevention like centers and stuff, and Trump just completely removed them. Or well, not removed them, but he just didn't use them, and he just like refused to take the situation seriously. Like he's always been doing this. Like
Yeah. All right, let's not get
Come on,
let's not get too political. Yeah, this is not the point of the podcast.
I don't know why
Yeah.
he hasn't been impeached yet.
he was, bro. He's been impeached.
No,
But,
he
like,
wasn't
he's-
impeached.
No,
He was
wasn't.
impeached. He just wasn't removed from office.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean. Why is he not? Why is he
Yeah.
not just gone?
It's
Lope,
incredible how-
impeachment is not. That's not how impeachment works, right? The vote passed but the Senate is owned by the Republicans, and therefore
Exactly.
it has to go through the Senate
Yeah. So it was
for
rejected.
him
bro.
to actually be impeached. So he wasn't
Right.
actually impeached. He just, people thought it was a good idea to do it.
Bro, he
That's
was-
all
I'm-
I wonder what that feels like to be the president of a country and a majority of your population says, no, we don't actually want you here.
Well, honestly, it's like I don't really think that he's the kind of person that really concerns himself with other people's opinions.
Bro, he was impeached. He was just acquitted by the Senate. So it was
Oh,
like,
okay.
All right, we have a late arriving co-host here. I shall quickly announce the arrival of Frederick. Welcome.
Hello, boys.
So currently we are discussing the current situation, coronavirus, the quarantine, and we're talking about how America didn't really take the right actions in time, and they underestimated the virus completely.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, thank you. So,
I mean, I don't really know where to jump. I don't know what's been said already, so I'll just.
mostly that Trump is not the best president, bro.
Trump is a nonce.
To say the least, bro. Jesus Christ.
What?
alright,
Am I
like
speaking?
said,
Am I speaking false? No, I'm not.
I mean,
Bro,
Like
there's
I
a
said,
difference
let's not-
between him being incompetent and him touching children, bro.
Bro,
okay, let's not
let's-
try to get too political,
bro,
especially
look.
with these,
Okay, the word that I
foreign-
just said is you're blowing it out of proportion, right?
Well, okay, it was for comedic purposes. Let's just leave it at that.
All right.
Bro, what's
Okay,
the
Rahul.
definition of a nonce, bro? Let me check that out. One sec.
Bro, trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. I know exactly what it means, bro.
Yeah, well, I don't think Rahul actually meant that Donald Trump is a so-called nonce.
Bro, didn't he have like
But-
multiple sexual claims against him that like he touched people? No, not even
Yeah,
that. He didn't.
No, there's a difference between an adult and a child, bro. It's like it's pretty significant difference, bro.
Yeah, I mean I've heard that as well. So, well, yeah. Anyways, so Pedro, you were saying about how you think that Western countries are a bit ignorant about this whole situation.
It's not a bit ignorant. It's just nowadays the world is just full of toxic positivity and like
Oh yes.
It's not negativity, but sure.
consider they're too considerate. They can be too considerate
Ah,
sometimes.
yes. That is
Bro,
true.
do you know what we mean by toxic positivity, bro?
What?
It's like it's pretty much putting like a towel over your eyes and saying everything is okay when it's just not.
Yeah, and that's
Like-
clearly what they did.
You know it's like the meme with the dog sitting in the room and the room's on fire. It's fine, but it really isn't. Yeah.
And I think that's like where the main problem comes from.
So since you guys are saying that you guys don't like the fact that you're locked in and no physical interactions, what do you guys think of Switzerland opening next week?
Well, I've heard some very disturbing claims
Oh yes.
that
Go ahead, tell them.
if we're allowed to go to school, we'll have to uphold what I like to call quarantine law, which is a play, of course, on martial law,
Yes.
in which we'll be basically forced to stay in school 2 meters apart and wear masks, and no contact is allowed between students. And I mean, that's not a difference. That's not opening up, first of all. And I'd also like to add that no halfway measure is a measure.
Yeah.
Like you either let us go or you keep us at home. You don't do halfway.
Well,
That's
I'm,
not right
Pedro,
for anyone.
touch the other children.
What,
All right,
Chris?
let's relax.
well, I'm sorry. Am I the only one who finds the mask stupid? Like,
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
it can go through your eyes, bro. What is?
yeah,
what is
but
the,
also like it's easier for it to go through the mouth.
Safety goggles.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
mean-
they might just give you safety goggles, masks, gloves, everything while they're at it.
Yes.
Walk around and look like absolute fools. Yes.
Like if that's the alternative, I'd rather stay at home.
Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't actually going to go to school. They're just going to end up staying home because, like, yeah, it seems like they're really like the fact that they're trying to push that we should go back to school, but we're all gonna anyways be like, try to avoid getting the virus. Might as well stay home because that's just the safest bet. Like, better be safe than sorry, as they say.
No,
Don't get me wrong. I'd go back to school. Like,
same
I
here.
want
Like,
to go back to school.
it's not a matter of like
go back
fearing
to
for me.
school.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I heard because I was talking about this with my dad today, and I was saying like, because he was saying it's a bad idea that they're opening up everything, and I said, well, it's not like people are going to start like running out, swarming the streets, and like that would be obviously the fastest way to get a second wave.
That's exactly what I'm gonna do, bro.
and actually, and he said like, no, actually in France, which is I've lived there. He said that. In some countries in France, that's exactly what's happening. Like the second they open, people are starting to swarm out into the streets and like not even like thinking twice about anything. And that's where the second wave is going to come, and back into quarantine we go. And I think that's one thing people are trying to avoid at the moment,
No,
or at
but,
least the
like,
government.
realistically, I think this was like an intrinsic flaw of the lockdown to begin with.
Mhm.
Like if you lock people in for that long, what do you really expect them to do?
Yeah.
To
Okay.
calmly return? It's like the kind of fire
Yeah.
drill scenario. If there's an actual fire, realistically, people aren't just gonna calmly walk out of the building. Like at least 80% of people are gonna freak out and start sprinting.
Mhm.
So like you can't really, you can sort of blame them and call them stupid, but at the same
Mhm.
time
Well, I mean,
you can't
so
really blame them.
and one thing also we discussed was the fact that me personally, I am currently in the south of Sweden, which has a very low amount of cases and a very low population density. So I am not at risk at the moment. And here, where almost everything is open, but you don't see a lot of people because people know what to do, and they know that they don't have to unnecessarily leave the house. So if they don't really have to go outside, then they won't. They'll stay indoors and be safe. And I thought, and I was saying this to my dad again, that, what if they just left Switzerland open, but said, maybe Switzerland's a bad example, but said, if you don't have to leave the house, don't do it. But like, otherwise the country's open, you can go in and out, and not many people are actually going to be outside.
I
That's
still
fair.
say keep the borders locked.
I mean, especially with with Italy, that was that was a
So,
big
like,
issue.
yeah, no, but like for example, Switzerland, like how many cases are there now? There's like what, 8,000, 9,000?
Who knows?
Anyone want to check?
Let me Google it right quick.
All right. Well, so I mean, you can continue talking.
Well, yeah. So, okay, there's 30,000 confirmed cases.
Mhm.
So, compared to like population of 8 million, it's really not that much, considering most of them are in the hospital right now. So, like, there's not really that much of a danger to open the borders. Like, personally, I want to go to Germany because there's stuff I want to buy there. So, you know, like, we do shopping and whatnot, and I want to buy stuff, you know. But like, obviously, some country like Italy, obviously, and China, you gotta keep them locked up. But I feel it's more of like a panic that's just causing the problems now than the actual virus. Like,
I mean, yeah, but also the fact that it's so contagious. So I think it's only a 2% chance of you actually getting a fatal, like, reaction to the virus. But it's also the fact that it just spreads so incredibly fast, and that's what scares people. And you know, like I was saying, that second wave, it's gonna come sooner or later, and I think that's what people are worrying about.
You know, the fatality rate might actually be lower than what you heard, because apparently, if anyone like at all dies with the coronavirus on them, like no matter the reason they died, they just like mark it down as a corona death. So like they could have died for other reasons, like maybe they like, I don't know, they had another disease or something, or they had like a sickness, or like.
I mean, even
with time it goes for the other way around. You can have many other diseases and they wouldn't have been fatal, but somebody contracts corona and then they die, and it gets marked down as cancer or whatever other disease they had.
No, it's marked down as corona because of the fact that I think they're paying the hospitals more if it's a corona death, or like if it's a corona case, that essentially the hospitals get more money.
I mean, in Switzerland, both ways, it's free healthcare. It doesn't make a difference.
Well, yeah, obviously Switzerland is
I mean, no,
civilized.
Same in Europe as well, and every other developing country, other than a developed country, other than.
The US is a great place. A great place to get sick from.
Florida's insane. They reopen their beaches and everything. Like, they just don't care.
Bro,
It's Florida.
It's Florida, bro. Like,
yeah. To be honest, the stereotype as well.
Full of old people.
That's true as well. But I mean, see, that's an issue, right? So apparently, you know, as they're saying in the beginning, old people are the most likely to be infected, even though that's been proven rather wrong because a lot of young people are dying as well. But if it's a bunch of old people in Florida and they open up Florida, that means it's more likely that a lot more people end up dying.
Well, I don't think the old people are gonna start sprinting to the beaches, though.
I mean, you never know. Like, I'll be honest, you never know. When it's Florida, like we said, you know.
Actually, yeah, I'm not gonna make any assumptions.
Yeah. Japan, though, imagine Japan must be struggling with the virus since their majority of the population is elderly. Yeah.
I guess. I did hear a story about elderly people in Japan, though, how they were like committing crimes to go to jail because they were just too poor to like survive on their own, and they had no
Japan
pension.
is completely they have like a bad economy because the fact that, you know, pensions have to be paid, and who's there to pay the pensions when there's less young people that are actually working than old people that are trying to receive.
Like, they're not even committing bad crimes. They just like walk to a park or something and like wave around a knife, and then they just get like a year in prison, and then they just chill there. Or they like semi-steal a bike or something.
Yeah, well, it is unfortunate that it has to be like that.
Old people gangs, gang.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're going to keep talking about Japan, if it's mostly old people, the fact that there's so little young people, that in the next generation there will be very few old people. And, you know, we might see a sharp decrease in Japan's overall population, I think. Because also, like, they're not really... It's not a population where they're constantly reproducing, like in India or in China.
Isn't that the case with a lot of, like, stage 5 civilizations, I think is what you call it? Where they're essentially people have less kids, and so, like, the population is just constantly decreasing?
Yeah, that is,
like, apparently that's why like Germany and stuff want like immigrants, because they want more people so that their population doesn't disappear.
Yeah, that's why they're they're allowing a lot of immigrants in, so that they can have a strong, especially working age. I mean, what do you think of all this, Pedro? Since you have been quiet for a bit.
I mean, Well, I've already discussed ageism in the last episode. I don't really want to batter the audience with the same arguments again. But like I said before, we should be worried about pensions, guys. Come up with an alternative way to do pensions, and you'll be a millionaire. You'll be like the guys that made The Big Short in 2008. That's
yeah,
that's
that's
what
probably
I think.
that is a fair point.
You mean the people who made the movie?
No, the actual people that like
Yeah,
saw it coming and bet it against the house market.
Yeah, that's a fair point to make. Well, have we then covered all that there is to cover about the coronavirus?
I mean, I guess.
I'm pretty sure, and then some as well.
Unless you guys want to keep talking about it, or we could move on.
By
Let's
all
just
means.
move on, realistically.
Does anyone have anything they want to discuss? Anything that's been bothering them or interesting them lately? Like possibly new hobbies during the quarantine, since we're all stuck indoors and bored.
But I have no idea how you managed to like stay so peppy, bro. Lend me some of your serotonin, please.
What do you mean?
Bro, like you still do like how often do you exercise, bro?
Well, I try at least 4 times a week.
Like you see that, bro? I'm trying my very, very best, bro. I still like
No,
okay, I have like other medical like issues that like stop me from doing it as much, bro, but like I still like struggle to do it like 2 or 3 times, and each time afterwards like it's just
I mean,
anyway, I admire you, bro. Respect for that.
oh, thank you. To be honest, it's more of a habit, more of a chore. I kind of see it that way. So I know, like last summer was definitely. I was impressed by myself. Like I would go to the gym every day for 2 hours. Which I mean, okay, it was during summer and I was changing schools, so I didn't really have anything to do. I didn't have any homework, any work to do. So that was a good way of spending a big part of the day. But yeah, now because there is school, it's a bit harder to do it during this quarantine. I would, since I'm in Sweden, I can go to the gym, and I do prefer to go like midday. That's when the least people are. People usually are in the mornings or in the evenings. But yeah, then I mean, obviously because of schoolwork, I don't go as much. But then like when I don't go, it just makes me feel like I haven't really accomplished everything I could have during that day. So it's just a mindset that I have acquired through the years of me working.
How do you even manage to build a habit that like deeply ingrained, bro? Like how do you do it?
Family. It's
Bro,
because-
like no, bro. My family has like tried to build a massive amount of habits, bro, and it's just like
okay,
usually
that's
it's
also, I mean, I also do comply with what my family tells me. So.
oof. Okay, bro. touche.
Sorry.
Okay, where's the whipped sound effect? No, I'm joking.
No, but
bro, you've been had, bro.
One of the biggest reasons is probably because since I was 3 years old, I was swimming in a pool, and then up to I think 8th grade, so around like 14, 15 years old, I was swimming, and then I started boxing as well and doing like just like self-defense martial arts, and
Bro.
then after that, I mean, there was a whole year where I slacked off, like I barely did any sports, and like I could just see the change of my body from when I was doing a lot of sports to when I was doing no sports, and that just motivated me to keep doing it because I didn't want to.
Yo, I
Go
do
back to
boxing
being
as well, bro.
Yeah,
It's
I
called
mean, if you do, it's good.
it's called
it's
it's
very-
called it's called pseudo boxing. I pretend I'm doing it and then I get gains from that.
You get
Wait,
muscle.
you mean shadow boxing?
Bro, not even shadow boxing, bro. I just like imagine
Mental
myself
boxing.
doing it, bro. I like
Yeah,
project my astral form in front of me and then my astral form boxes, bro.
Yes, through sheer willpower.
Exactly.
Oh, that's the
You
best
get
exercise.
muscle through sheer will.
Did you know that there was actually a study where they took 3 groups of almost identical individuals and they exposed one to heavy intensity training for 3 weeks, the second to heavy intensity training, but it was actually just them imagining that they were doing it, and the third group was a control group. Did you know that the second group, the one with just imagining, they got 23% increase in strength?
What about the first group?
Yeah, so that's
41%.
pseudoscience.
It's not even that far apart. It's like a solid 18%
Is that an
difference.
actual?
That's
Is that an
actual study. It's a legit study. I'm not even joking.
Wait, did you say 18% between 41 and 25?
23.
That's not 18%.
It is.
It is.
Oh, okay.
Lope, you've challenged the Lope, you challenged the wrong ethnicity. Okay.
Phew.
I
Well,
have the
it
genetic
took me a second,
advantage.
It took me a second.
And I wonder. So they just put themselves in a mindset where like
No,
I
so-
am now lifting heavy.
Yeah, so
or
they were
how?
given a training program that was identical to the first group, and they were put in the environment of a gym, and they had people around them doing workouts, and all they did was just imagine them doing the workout. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of issues with them imagining doing workouts because, you know, obviously
Mhm.
you can't account for when somebody is actually imagining it or not, but it turns out there was a significant increase in their strength overall.
I don't know how,
How
that
does
maybe
that even make sense? How does that work?
maybe that's
well, no, because there's this phenomenon called mind-muscle connection, which kind of helps
yeah.
people. Like, mind-muscle connection is basically it's that extra edge that gives you higher control of your body or certain body parts that you're working out. And it's actually two things. It's one thing to have a mind-muscle connection, and one thing to just focus on the muscle itself. So when you isolate both, each one gives you a certain level of gains in a matter. But when you combine both is when you get the maximum gains, which is what happened with the first group. They had a 41% increase because of the fact that they had both mind muscle and the actual workout. Whereas if you just do mind muscle, it doesn't really help. Or if you just do workout, then it's not as effective.
it's
Wait,
well, I
how
mean,
can you do the workout without the mind bit though?
Because you could just be doing the movement without really focusing on, for example, if you do a concentration curl,
Yeah.
you could just be doing the movement without focusing on squeezing the biceps. You know, you could do that. Or when you're doing like, you know, a shoulder, when you're doing a delta raise, if you don't focus on keeping your shoulders back, then you move load off onto the triceps or the chest, and then you're not really getting full expansion
Mhm.
on your muscles. So you have to be really
Exactly.
focused. You have to make sure that your form is correct, that you're only working out the muscles that you're targeting, and you're not giving off load that should be dispersed evenly throughout your body. That's the main goal. That's why beginner gains are so easy to get, because if you do light weights and proper form, then you instantly build muscle or you build strength to a certain bit, and then from then on it gets hard work.
I actually did not know that.
yeah, it is definitely very interesting. Like people, you know, some people go to the gym to like relax or to like relieve stress. Maybe not relax, but relieve stress. You know,
True.
it's something to do, something to get your mind off of.
Exactly.
But like if you're very serious about it, it honestly you're working out your mind as much as you're working out your muscles, because you're trying to get that like I can't remember, I don't know the word for it, but it's a connection, a mental connection, I guess you could say, where you can, because like if you give an example, I think it's Terry Crews, how he can like flex his chest muscles extremely well. I think that's who it is.
Yeah, it's
I'm
Terry
like,
Crews, the
yeah,
guy
yeah.
who
And
screams in
that
ads.
very a very impressive mind muscle connection. The way he can just like constantly flex his muscles, and it makes such a like a big contraction that's very visible. That's a good example of it. Yeah, that's definitely very interesting.
I mean, speaking of exercise, Lope, you could do simple stuff. Like, for example, I'm just doing 20 minutes of skipping a day on top of, like, you know, jump workouts. But really, 20 minutes of skipping, it's fun. Like, it's really fun. It's just you don't realize that you're actually working out or exercising until a couple of minutes later.
No,
where
bro,
you-
I'm still gaining like muscles, bro. It's still happening.
Yeah, well,
Like
we were
I,
going through
I just
the other.
I just do like push-ups until I can't anymore, and then like, and then like sit-ups. No, well, like some ab workouts, bro. It's just
Yeah.
I don't do it often or consistently because no motivation, bro.
True.
Because there's like that's one of the things with the quarantine, bro. It's just monotonous. Like there's no real change in like day to day.
Yeah, that's true. No, yeah, it's very interesting because you realize how boring our lives actually are in society. Because like, you know, every single day we do pretty much exactly the same thing. We get up in the morning, we go to work or school, we go through 8 hours, 6 hours, and you go back, you eat dinner, you maybe talk to a few different friends, and then you sleep, and then it resets.
No, but if you think about it, bro, usually when you go outside, the thing is there's always variables around you, bro. Like
Yeah.
there's always a chance something random will happen. Like you could maybe be on like public transport or something, and then like someone could bump into you or something, and it's different, bro. Something
But
something
the overall
unique has
idea
happened, bro.
is the same.
Like
But now,
maybe it's similar or like a regular routine, bro. But at least there's like that like certain changes in the day, bro. And when you're in quarantine though, everything
yeah,
is like I've been in my room for like days, bro. Like maybe go downstairs to grab some food or watch like some TV for a bit, but like I've looked around my room and I like know everything here now, and there's no change. It's
Yeah.
just me here. So
let's get
Okay.
some. I think we should get some opinions from Fred. We haven't heard from you.
We
In a bit.
haven't.
We have not. Yes. What do you think about this routine you have got into now because
I
of?
mean, it's whatever. Like, I know it's not like anything that there's not much that is in my control. So, to be fair, I just end up doing the same thing every day. But honestly, I don't mind it that much because I'm still talking to people. I'm still,
Yeah. So it doesn't really bother you. You're saying?
yeah. I mean, I'd rather not be in quarantine. But
Yeah. Obviously.
it's not. I don't feel that affected by it.
Yeah. All right. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, but I mean, definitely when we get out,
Yes, definitely.
we're gonna have to do something about that.
We will.
Did you want to say anything, Lope? I think I heard you start to speak.
I don't remember what I was gonna say anymore. My
Right.
attention span is non-existent.
I see. Well, I think something we can all agree on that we're doing, and since this is we're talking about the quarantine and everything. Sorry.
We're doing podcasts.
Yeah, that is very true. But I think something that we could all agree on that we're participating in during the quarantine is playing video games. And I know Rahul, you wanted to say something possibly about a game that we've been pretty fond about lately, which is CS:GO, Counter-Strike Global
Oh
Offensive.
no.
Sorry, come again. What was that?
So I
Don't
was-
encourage him.
Should I not? I mean,
Don't enable him, bro. Don't give
Oh,
him
you
that
mean
power.
CS:GO? Yeah, of
Oh,
course,
no.
bro. Bro, that game, bro. Yo, let me tell you all about the game mechanics, bro. All right,
you
let me
don't have
start
to.
off with.
You don't even
Let's
know the
just-
game mechanics.
No, I did. I've been doing a lot of
give
research.
Rahul, just give us a brief description about what the game is.
Everybody
It's a game that really raises your blood pressure.
That's
It
true.
gives you panic attacks, and when you sleep at night, you actually think you're dying.
Thank
Maybe
you for
not-
that
maybe not
entirely
that-
inaccurate
But
description.
hey,
Yeah,
you know what?
okay.
It's free, so cop it.
Well, now it
Cop
is,
it.
yeah.
It's free and it's low spec, so you can run it on like Pedro's ThinkPad 2012. or
Excuse me,
whatever.
I have this Aster Predator right now. I'm on an Aster Predator. Okay.
Yeah, he does
Acer,
have
bro.
a
Why are you
good.
saying
Why are you
Acer,
saying
bro?
Acer, bro? Are you like deranged
Acer.
or something?
No, but okay, so pretty
No,
much
no offense to deranged people. I didn't mean to
Do you have
compare
do
you
you have a
with
problem with
Pedro.
my pronunciation?
Yes, bro. I have a problem with it. What are you gonna
Oh
do
my
about it?
god.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think I'll just describe in simple terms. CS:GO is a game. It's a first-person shooter where you're in a team. If you play competitive, you're in a team of 5 people versus another team of 5 people.
What if
There's
you
2
solo
sides.
queue?
There's yeah, you can solo queue, you can queue with friends. Queue is when you are willing to play with friends, and pretty much you have the terrorists and the counter-terrorists, and I mean it's pretty self-explanatory. The terrorists try to plant a bomb, and counter-terrorists have to defuse the bomb
That doesn't seem
and
very
also
appropriate.
survive. Well, it's a
Hey,
video game.
I mean, it's a
luckily.
video
It's
game.
not-
You know, video games are meant to
Yeah.
mirror the aspects of the real world. So
You
I
know,
mean-
it would be terrific if the terrorist in real life were as incompetent as the one in CS:GO, bro.
yeah, bro. In CS:GO, bro, the bomb makes so much noise when it's dropped. You honestly might as well defuse it like after it explodes. Like,
No,
That's-
like
that's
you're
how-
blowing up like a fountain 80% of the time, bro. Like I wish
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
they were doing, bro, instead of beheading.
It's a very small area. But anyways, the reason I bring this up is because it is, I think, apart from Fred, it is something that we've been occupying ourselves with during this rather boring quarantine. And I have to say, even though it's not an actual sport, it's considered an esports, and it's interesting how you can talk about the gym, you can talk about sports, and see your skills increasing. But now, you know that we're living in such a modern era, you can see skills in video games increasing, which I mean I personally find very interesting. How we were talking about mind muscle before, and now we're talking
It's
about
brain finger.
memorizing, right trigger, left trigger, using only your fingers, which to be honest isn't much muscle, but memorizing things such as the cost of weapons. Because CS:GO, it's a very impressive game because it has its own complete economy that comes along with it. So you win a round, you get a bit more than if you lose a round. If you get a kill, you'll get a bonus for that. If you plant the bomb, you'll get a $300 bonus. Just to give an example.
Exactly.
And you have to
I mean,
take into consideration
there's so many
this whole thing.
merits. There's so many merits to gaming that people often overlook. Besides the fact that it's addictive, well, a lot of kids who do game, they show tremendous reaction speeds, highly
That is one
intensive focus.
very big thing that people can see, especially in CS:GO. It's very impressive to see the reaction time that people acquire. It's honestly sometimes scary how fast people react, even though it's only a click of your finger, so it's very small.
No, but when you think about it, it's just a different kind of. It's still hand-eye coordination because you're using your hand to like aim on the screen. So it's just hand-eye. It's just different muscles and different skills you're using. So it still qualifies itself as like a sport. It's just
and I mean you're working the brain because
it's just people are salty that their inherent genes are no longer superior.
That is true. But yeah, it's also it was a study recently done in Sweden where that it's good that people are playing these games, especially internationally, because Swedish people are learning to speak English better due to meeting people online and talking to them.
Well,
And
I don't really think meeting people online has a lot of positive connotations to it.
Sometimes it can. Doesn't always have to be bad.
Rarely in CS:GO. Very rare.
In CS:GO, it's like your third family, the family that you never wanted and you will never have.
You have it. You just didn't want it and didn't need it, and really wish you didn't have it.
Exactly. It's such a diverse community. Everyone. I mean, it ranges from Russians to Russian hackers to Russian
we saw
pros.
even Serbians.
Then you have the Serbian insurgents as well, but that's another story for another
you
time.
can see, people from all over the place, it's honestly interesting to see. Like, you don't think about how many people there actually are on this earth until, you start exploring the different ways these different people pass their time.
True.
I mean, if you think about it, though, there are still like billions without connection sitting in slums and stuff. So,
Well, I mean, at least you got to experience the half that you could.
Shout out Nigeria.
Do you play any games that require
I'm glad you asked. Welcome to Overwatch competitive.
Oh no!
All right, well now explain.
Allow me to
Frederick.
demonstrate my skill in Clash Royale.
Oh no!
Okay, let's let Fred
You ruined the
explain his
conversation,
game.
man. You ruined it. No, so what is Overwatch competitive? Great question. Well, think about the worst gaming experience that you can have.
Bro, I doubt
it
that,
is
bro.
bad.
I raise you up one, bro. Play League of Legends. I dare you to keep your sanity, bro. I dare you.
You know how hard it is to send messages on Xbox?
Do you know how hard it is?
It's so hard, but people still do it. It takes like 20 minutes to write a word on a note.
I mean, this is because they're passionate. They're very angry.
This is why you buy PlayStation, not Xbox.
Bro, at least it's difficult, so people have to genuinely be really mad at you to do it, bro. Like you're just on the computer, so it's just hate everywhere, bro.
Honestly, though, I've tried controller and I find computer a lot easier. If you can master like recoil and like everything on a controller, that's very impressive, in my opinion.
Like I've never mastered playing like video games on a controller. It just feels like less natural to me than using the keyboard.
The only video game I've ever mastered on controller is Little Big Planet 3, and mind you, that was a solid game.
Bro, trust me, 1v1 me, bro. I can speedrun that way fast, bro. Trust me.
You can speedrun that any percent, bro.
Bro, 100% full perfection completion, bro.
I can do it under 3 minutes.
I highly doubt.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yo, Noah, you trying to talk some smack, bro?
No, I'm just saying I'm trying to run this podcast and I don't want it to go completely off track. I know we've been a bit off track now because video games, but
True.
let's at least try to keep it slightly on its rails as we proceed to discuss further.
Lope, what is your opinion on slavery?
My opinion on slavery? That's a good question, bro. Really, really good question, bro. So, actually, it's controversial opinion here, bro. If you think about it, bro, if not for the racism in the transatlantic slave trade, bro, nobody would have batted an eye at it, bro. Like, if you think about it, because slavery has been a thing that's existed for pretty much forever, and as long as like it's kind of like the genocide against the Jews. Like,
All right.
I'm digging
Yeah,
myself
fair enough.
into a hole.
Go
here.
on, speak.
No, but-
Speak. Wise words.
Essentially, bro, if it wasn't just like really focused at one group of people,
Mhm.
most people wouldn't have like how many other people died in the war, bro? Like a bunch of people died. as
Countless.
well.
At least three.
But
Yeah, at least three.
Yeah,
At least
yeah,
three,
countless tens of hundreds of people, bro.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not wrong,
No.
but yeah.
But so many people died, and everyone was like, "Okay, bro, it's war. It's fine." They got like the bombings as well. Everyone was like, "Oh no, what a tragedy!" But like it became a serious problem with the Holocaust because it was all focused at like one group of people. Of course,
Mhm.
also the atrocities and the inhumane.
Yeah.
Okay,
no,
it's
we
not
get
the
it, we get
best
it.
analogy, but like
No, no.
with the slavery thing, like, bro, black people have held slaves, bro, in the past. White people, everyone has held slaves of like various races. It only really became a problem when you essentially started farming Africa for slaves.
It became a problem when the
Like-
Egyptian Empire fell.
So what you're saying is that it's okay to have some slaves. It's just when
No,
you
I'm not
take
saying
too many
slavery is
slaves from
okay.
one place.
It's
No.
just
No.
when you broadcast and advertise your mass collection of slaves, then it's a
He's
problem.
saying there's a limited quota of people. There's a limited quota of slaves each person can have. I understand.
Don't
No, I
twist
think-
my words, bro.
No, I think
For
what I
that-
think what Lope is
for
trying
that
to say
straw
is
man,
the
Fred.
fact that there was racism is what shed light upon slavery and what made it an actual issue.
not that made it an actual issue, bro. It's just
Well, it
what
was an issue in the
really
beginning, but yeah.
like people, bro. Obviously, no one has ever enjoyed being a slave. Like I don't think anyone was ever like woohoo. Maybe Kanye West, but
All right, all right.
bro, he said slavery's a choice, bro. I have to respect it.
Respect
I
his
remember
words.
that.
Bro, but it doesn't change the fact that like realistically it would not have been that big of a deal, bro, if there was like black, white, Asian slaves instead.
Mhm.
Like people would have just
Yeah,
been like, "Ah, well, it happens, bro. If you're unlucky, you might get grabbed. What are you gonna do about it?
Just
Life sucks." But when it's like you're farming a specific race, they don't really have a choice.
If race is involved, it's just basically like the caste system
Like, yeah,
in India.
Essentially, bro, if you're targeting only one group of people, obviously that group of people is gonna get butthurt, bro. We
Yeah.
weren't happy, bro. But like, if everyone is being targeted, I don't think anyone would have cared, bro. It would have just been like, bro,
I mean,
bad
no,
luck
but
for everybody.
you're still gonna be mad at the people.
no,
Not
obviously,
everyone is targeted.
you're still gonna be mad, bro. But the
Yeah,
thing
so
is,
I mean, people are not.
Yeah, but
gonna be
instead
like,
of-
all right, it's fine.
yeah. Instead of generating
but
hate towards one side,
yeah,
it would not
generate
have
hate
been
towards
that big of a
everybody.
deal, bro. It would not have been that big of a deal. Like,
You know, I see what you mean.
I feel like-
I see what you mean.
think about it. If
I feel like
if,
people would still get mad at being.
no, like
slaves.
let's say if the Europeans, the Asians, and like the Russians, let's say, all three groups held like slaves, all right, from all over the world, bro. And even like the Africans probably would have gotten involved at that point too, bro, in holding slaves.
Mhm.
If everyone has slaves, bro,
Of
it
different
would
race.
probably just become like a social norm. Like
I mean, but
eventually,
everything-
obviously,
obviously
people
so-
would like realize, hey, that's inhumane. You can't just grab someone's rights and throw them away. But
Mhm.
like in that time, it would not have been that big of a deal.
I mean, but when slavery on African Americans was a thing, it wasn't a big deal back then either. Like no one considered it a big deal then either.
Okay.
I feel like it is the same thing. I feel like it is the same thing, no matter if it's like
No, I
only
see
black
what you're
people
saying. That it's like it wasn't
in
a big deal.
America, they all thought that was normal as well for many years until MLK came around and he was like, "Nah, this ain't
It
good."
wasn't. It was Lincoln that freed the slaves. But
Fun
Bro,
fact:
oh, yeah.
the British actually ended slavery.
well, yeah, they did it before the Americans.
Fun
but,
fact:
like,
the Egyptians started it.
no, bro, it wasn't the Egyptians.
Can we
bro.
get John in the call, please? Can we get John?
He'll
We
be-
need
he'll
his
be the
expert
next guest.
advice.
You know what? Let's just make him the next guest.
Yeah,
Why not?
we'll bring this topic back up when John comes. Yeah, when
I
you
mean, maybe it would be a bit overused, but I mean, yeah, why not? Let's see what he thinks of it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
At
you
least get
know,
his opinion.
nothing wrong with contacting an expert.
Well,
All right. Well, again, this is all just opinion. Just a quick like halfway disclaimer. It's all just opinion. So
yeah, I'm not I'm like, bro, don't take my opinion as an educated opinion. I'm just
yeah, no, I don't think take any of our opinions as educated.
Yeah, especially mine, because mine's a bit controversial. But
Smash the rules. That's correct.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd say that was. I don't know if that segment is done, but it was definitely an interesting one, to say the least.
True.
I think,
Definitely.
yeah. But
realistically, I want to hear Pedro's conspiracy theory though.
all right, well,
About the Gerals, bro.
let's keep talking. Let's hear it.
I completely agree with Lope. Lope
Okay,
is
well, let's hear it,
100%
Pedro.
right.
I think
Like,
it's a good way of keeping.
If we're doubling down with the slavery thing, like then Lope has the correct opinion on slavery. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's the truth. Slavery has existed since the dawn of time. It took us a while to get rid of it, but no
I mean-
no one race was ever responsible for it, and no one race was ever targeted by it. It was always universal,
Until the transatlantic slave trade.
and it still is. And there's still a bunch of modern slavery, and we're
Yeah,
constantly
there is,
pointed
yeah.
out
I was gonna say.
to it. Not only like just in the literal form, but in the economic way, which is how things are done now, mostly nowadays, to my disgust.
Mhm.
But
course,
you know,
You need to you need to mask your wrongdoings, bro.
I think
Yeah.
Lope has the right idea.
I think the thing that's impressive though is now there's even more slaves than there has ever been. Except we barely see any of it. We don't even get to hear about it, and that's the scary part. Is like in the past, it was easy to see. You know, they were like, okay, they were obviously sold wide open because it was considered a norm.
Like before, it was institutionalized slavery. Now it's
Yeah, now it's like
Different.
extremely black market, and it's just trafficking it now. I mean,
Like, realistically, if you think about it, it's not just like the actual like slaves. It's also just
Mhm.
people who are like there's plenty of poor people who are like, for example, prostitutes and their
Yeah,
pimps. Those are they're slaves. No matter how
Mhm.
you look at it, they don't have a choice in what they're doing. They
Yeah.
aren't able to escape. They're beaten. Like they're still slaves. We just don't see them as slaves because we say everyone has the same human rights, but
Yeah.
if no one is really looking like carefully at what's happening, there's a lot people get away with.
that is very true. The all-seeing eye doesn't see all. It does give exceptions to some people, especially when it comes to money.
Ah, yes, money.
that is a very big issue in my opinion, money. But we live in a capitalist society, so there's not really much we can do about it.
Except revolt. Vive la révolution.
All right.
Yeah, that
well,
would end very quickly.
all right. Well, I think we have come to a 45-minute mark. Do you think we should end the podcast here or keep going for another 15 minutes?
I mean, if there's anything specifically, but right now I can't think of anything. I don't know.
No. Well, I think personally, I mean, we might as well end it. We have
Yeah,
talked
I
about
think it's been
a lot of
good.
different things.
I say we call it a day for now.
Yeah, I think there's definitely we shall be discussing more in the future, especially with Pedro. I think we could maybe we have a political podcast
Oh,
where we can discuss politics a bit more. But for this time, I think this podcast will come to an end now. It was definitely, like I said, interesting, a good talk, I must say. And well, thank you everyone for listening. If we have an audience, that's we don't know. And
It's been fun.
it has. Thank you, Lope, our guest for today, for coming. You probably will be on some other time because we need a few guests every now and then.
I'd love to help. Love to pull up.
No problem.
Diversity is good for ratings.
Yeah, of course.
That is that is true.
You can
And,
stick my face on the CDs.
Perfect. Well, thank you for listening. We are the Room Temperature IQ podcast, and goodbye.